On the listed junior side, Encore and Laramide probably have the most New Mexico exposure. Talk
Mhm.
about the New Mexico pipeline for a moment. And do you see any interaction with Laramide in dealing with developments there in New Mexico?
So the with New Mexico, we see New Mexico as a longer strategy. There's a couple of reasons why but the main one is that the legacy of historic uranium mining in New Mexico has created some legacy issues that have to be addressed prior to getting, for lack of a better term, as we work in the ESG environment, the social license to be able to operate. We can do everything right on the regulatory side, but if we don't have the ability to convince the local communities that we need to be operating, it creates basically an uphill battle on the regulatory licensing. So we've taken the approach that we need to do some inroads into the local communities, focusing on the Navajo communities that are near where our projects are. And we see that as it's going to be a bit of a time to do it. Like talk about 5 years. That's probably the right window, but it's to work not only with addressing some of the issues that, supporting one of the things I've been very active on with respect to the Navajo issues is to address a lot of the abandoned uranium mining claims. These are all federal responsibilities, but working with congressional staff and both folks in the House and Senate side and in previous administration to drive the cleanup. There's money available, and to drive the cleanup for these, because one thing I've learned working in a Navajo community is that no one's going to want to look at new uranium projects, or even though they're off the reservation, but they don't even want them in their communities until we deal with the legacy side. And that's a lot of it has to do with just how the practices were done back in the 50s, the 60s, and 70s before a lot of the environmental and safety laws were enacted. But it's hard to convince anybody that you can act responsibly until what they see every day driving down the road or near their home is addressed. And so, you go, well, I've got my license, I've got money, it's my project, I can do what I want to. But really and truthfully, in that area, it's very, it's just you've got to be aware of what's going on in the local tribal communities. And I think that's important. That's something we've looked at. We're looking at ways to provide opportunities for something more than just a couple of jobs and maybe a park or infrastructure, small infrastructure project or something like that in the local community as a means to get in, but creating true opportunities for the community going forward. And there's some of the sense like what we've seen up in Saskatchewan with some of the work that Cameco's done, as well as other places in the U.S. And so that's part of our strategy to give us that social license to operate in New Mexico with respect to Laramide and the ability to operate. As you know, we have our Crown Point property that has we have significant control of the minerals at Crown Point, where there's a need to work together with Laramide because we have parallel interests there or overlapping interests. And I would say that the folks at Laramide are great, and I've known Mark Henderson for quite a while, and some of the people that work under him, I have a lot of respect for them. And I think that there's going to be a place where we'll be able to work together on particularly developing Crown Point, but we both benefit from the strategy that we're talking about, which is working in the local communities, trying to get that social license. I used to work for Uranium Resources back in the late 80s and early 90s, through the mid 90s. And one of the things we did was we spent a heck of a lot of money in New Mexico licensing and permitting. And every time we went to a hearing and everything, it was always the legacy issues that showed up, and the fact that people needed more assurance than just a few jobs in the community. I think Laramide recognized that they've got a couple of people that do work for them that have went through that history, and I think that gives us both an opportunity to be able to deliver. But New Mexico's got great resources, and they fit our profile of looking at in situ first, and so I just see the opportunity there, but it's going to take some work. It's going to take some time and some work and patience. I do believe we will be successful there.
Yeah, you guys have a pretty good team in that regard there. And then also just your experience in the U.S., you've got a lot of tribe experience as well. And so, again, capability here is ticking those boxes. And I think you guys have ticked a lot of those. And I think you guys will continue to progress those in a reasonable manner to gain, social support, which is so key to start at the local level and then work your way up from back up to the county, state level, et cetera.